Sergeant and Mrs. Smith, you're going to love this house.
Is that a tub in the kitchen?
There's no field manual for finding the right home. But when you do, USAA Homeowners Insurance can help protect it the right way. Restrictions apply.
Okay, round two. Name something that's not boring.
A laundry? Ooh, a book club. Computer solitaire, huh?
Ah, sorry, we were looking for Chumba Casino. That's right, ChumbaCasino.com has over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Welcome to the Dragon's Lair podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Dragon's Lair podcast. I'm Jamie and joining me as always is Gavin Thomas. How are we doing, Gav?
I'm very well. The pod's coming thick and fast and I'm enjoying them.
They certainly are. Just a reminder that you can find us at all the usual places, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. Please subscribe and leave us a nice review, just like Morgan has done on Facebook this week. We've had a lovely review come in. So Morgan got in touch to say, started listening to the podcast this past season and it has been brilliant. Very balanced, looks at the team through the ups and downs. The guests that have appeared on the pod have been great as well. Thanks, guys. And thank you, Morgan, for leaving that very kind review. And we've got another special guest for you this week, a former Wales prop from Usk, who played for clubs such as Newport RFC, Harlequins and Worcester Warriors. He also had coaching spells with Worcester, Ebervale Dragons and RCG, and has recently been appointed Dragons Academy head coach and forwards coach for Newport RFC. It is, of course, Mr. Ceri Jones. Ceri, how are you doing, fella? Are you okay?
Yeah, very well. Firstly, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. You spend the time to listen to my couple of words.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we're delighted to get you on. And you're very popular with supporters as well. So we've had a few requests to get you on, haven't we, Gav?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm very popular still in Ebervale, so I was keen to have you on.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, then, so let's start as we always do with all our guests. Let's go back to the beginning, Ceri, and take us through your rugby journey. How and where did it all start for you?
Oh, well, I suppose really started, with my dad really, played for Ebervale and Newport himself, and he was a Wales B cap. So he was always, passionate about his rugby. So it started off with me as a young kid going down to Aston Rugby Club and running about on the side and playing with my mates just on the side, and my brother. That's probably where it started, and the passion for rugby started. And then, went on through, played through school and, played a bit for sort of Pontypool District and those sort of things. Played like Gwent under 11s as you do and all that sort of pathway. Yeah. Then I left school quite young. Came back, I was working on the farm, and just sort of, I suppose I had the first season with us and did all right. And then sort of kicked on from there. I went to Uick for a little bit just because my brother was down there in uni, and I just sort of went down with him and started playing a bit for the Saturday team. So I had a sort of 6-month period down there. Then I went to New Zealand and played over there for a bit, just through a contact with dad. So that was really enjoyable. Just probably developed me and just you'll get an understanding of how passionate the New Zealanders are about rugby in general. They're up at 6 o'clock in the morning doing extra weight sessions. They do their fitness once they finish work, and everyone was doing that, and they weren't getting paid or anything for it. It's just what they do because of their passion for the game. So yeah, that sort of ignited it. And then I came back, and a lot of people have been telling me I was sort of a bit too good for the level I was playing at. So Newbridge actually asked me up there to play the game for Newbridge, and I was considering sort of signing for them at the time. And then I think what happened at Newport was I think Snowy had I think he got banned. I think he got banned for headbutting somebody or something. Along those lines.
Sounds about right to that.
Yeah, and I think somebody else was injured. I don't know. But anyway, so basically, Junna rang up the old man, said, Ed, your boy's back. He's decent. He fancy coming down and training with us. And it was the week of the game of Neath away. It was down at the Knoll, and I trained twice that week, and he stuck me in for it because I think he was a few short, and he liked what he saw on the weekend. And we actually went down to my first game was Neath away at the Knoll, and we actually won down there. I remember Spen played tight there. I think Hixie played hooker, and we won down at the Knoll, which was a big win at the time. Obviously against them. So so Newport career kicked on from then. Played down there, and then this sort of the year after that, that's when Tony Brown came in. So I suppose I was a young player. I was only like 20 or something like that, and 21 maybe. And then obviously he came in. He signed up quite a few of the younger players to start with. So people like myself, Coffey, Matthew J, Popham to come in, Joe Powell. And then obviously, from that squad, then he added the likes of Teichmann and Shane, and obviously the history from there. So we had a fantastic for those few years. And then off the back of that, then obviously when it went to go regional, I think there was, it was a funny old time really, because nobody was quite sure what was going to happen with the merger between Newport and Abervale. And obviously Ruddock came down. He brought, everyone thought he was going to bring Adam Black down with him. Obviously Snowy was there at the time. You had Adrian Garvey, you had Chris Anthony. So it would have been a pretty tough. There was an opportunity to go up to Harlequins at the time on loan. It was because they, again, sort of bit of right place, right time, similar to the way I got into Newport, and had an opportunity to go up to Harlequins. Went up there and played Bristol away. We had a decent sort of hit out there. It was the funny old week. It was the week after Nick Duncan had passed away, the scrum half up there. So it was a tough week for Harlequins that week. I started the following week down in London Irish away, and we had another good win down London Irish away, and that sort of kickstarted my career up there. And I ended up sort of 9 seasons up there, and then, as you know, a couple of seasons at Worcester. And I managed to pick up a couple of Welsh caps on the tour of Australia on the way. So that's probably that's probably me in my career in a few words, sort of thing.
Oh, great stuff. Thank you for that. So you made 98 appearances for the Black and Ambers between 1998 and 2003. And then, as you mentioned, you joined Harlequins in the English Premiership. And you became a bit of a club legend there, didn't you, down at the Stoop? You made 230 appearances and you scored 24 tries. So you must have some fond memories of your time in West London.
Yeah, no, I was there for a long period of time, and I was fortunate really with the injuries I had. Majority sort of came at the end of the season, so I was managed to get sort of patched back up and get back on the field. So I was pretty consistent with my appearances sort of every year to rack up a fair few games. So as the supporters always enjoy a player who's reasonably durable and gets on the field more often than not. So we had a period through that. We had highs and lows. We got relegated the one year, believe it or not, but I also won 2 sort of European shields, they were at the time, so that the lower European competition, we ended up sort of doing pretty well in the Heineken Cup the one year, and we ended up with the Bloodgate scenario as well. So I was,
of course,
so it was 9 years of unbelievable memories. Really enjoyed time. Lots of really good friends, and lots of highs and lows within that as well. But it's like, I suppose, like everyone's career, it tends to happen a bit like that. But no, I've got nothing but fond memories, and they still really look after you as an ex-player up there. They've invited me up to several dinners. I've been back up there. They invite former players back up for days to watch matches. And we recently took the 18s actually up to Harlequins and did a training session with them just before this block started. So like I said, I've got friends within the coaching group up there, people like Jim Evans and John Turner Hall, they're still involved, and like I said, we've got a really strong relationship with them going forward, which I think could be good for the Dragons going forward as well.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, do you still keep in touch with the boys at Harlequins? So it's good to hear that you are still involved and they invite you back for dinners and stuff. That's quite nice, isn't it?
Oh no, it's it's a really good club like that. I think there's at certain time there's a wrong impression of Harlequins, that some people think they're highfalutin and sort of West London and swanky club and all that, but there's a lot of good sort of morals within there, and like I said, they're part of looking after ex-players is huge for them, and like I said, it means a lot to the players that you're asked back and you're appreciated for the effort that you've given in your time after you finished.
Yeah, absolutely. Gav, was you going to say something there?
Well, I was going to ask Ceri a question. You might already have this written down, so I might be getting away your script here, Jamie. But
come on then.
As a player, what kind of always stuck with me was, Ceri, that you could play either side of the scrum. You played both loose and tight. How did that come about? Because it was rare then. It's even rarer now. How did that come about?
I was a better loose head than a tight head, put it that way. So the one season it was with Harlequins when it really started is we had a couple of injuries on the tight head side, and we were struggling a bit, and we sort of looked around the group, and I was sort of probably the most experienced then, so I'm like, well, I'll go over, I'll give it a go. I'm not promised anything, but then we had like a European game over in Munster, and the scrum went all right. To be fair, it was reasonably solid, but I still managed to contribute quite a lot around the pitch. So I sort of, I was reasonably high work rate on the loose head side, but I made quite a few tackles, 10 plus, and I had, I don't know, load of rucks hit and a few carries and everything else from the tight head, and that was a lot more than other tight heads were doing. So I think they were sort of like, well, we found an answer here. It was okay, but then I came up against some really good packs, and I had a bit of a stuffing, to be honest with you, at times as well. So it was hard trying to do it. Obviously, you do what you can for your club, and I ultimately, did what I could for Wales at the same time. So we had the same situation when I went away on tour. So I ended up, starting to win game on the tight head, and possibly struggled a bit. Then, I don't know. I know very early on in my career, there was sort of Graham Henry was sort of speaking to me. We were very fortunate in Wales. We had a lot of good loose heads at the time. So, sort of my year group, you had Duncan, you had Iestyn Thomas, you had myself, and obviously you had Gethin Jenkins. So, there's a lot of, there's a fair bit of talent in a probably two-year pool, so it was always a tough fight to get any sort of international honours around that with some real legends in there, to be fair. So, so it was probably a bit of both those factors why I ended up doing a bit more on the tight head than I possibly should have at times if I reflect on it, because I was probably, like I said, I was a lot better looser than I was a tight head. But you do what you can at the time, don't you? Just try and sort of, one, for your club, and secondly for your country, you do whatever you could if they ask you to, I think.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I think it's what I don't think people always understand the significant difference between those two positions, though, do they? I think people say, "Oh, you're a prop, you can play anyway, you can play either side," and it's a very different job being loose head than being tight head, isn't it?
Yeah, I think when I first went over, I think the one side of my body almost wouldn't work. So I'm right-handed. I couldn't get my right arm work in sequence at all, because I was so used to being jammed and sort of working from the inside and being solid and scrimmaging through just my right hand loose head. But when I went to the other side, trying to change everything you're doing, it's like trying to change what hand you write with almost. That's how it felt, certainly. But like I said, you adapt, and you just try to do the best job you possibly can for the team, and that's what I tried to do every time I was asked to do so.
Yeah, absolutely, fair enough. Talking about Wales then, so 2 caps you won for Wales. Both of those were on the 2007 Australia tour. In the first test in Sydney, you came on at loose head for Iestyn Thomas in the 73rd minute. Now, that was the game that we lost in the last minute, wasn't it? Because that was Gareth Cooper kicking the ball away. They ran it back at us and they scored. So that is the test, isn't it? That's the game we really should have won. Yeah. And then in the second test, you started at tight head, where unfortunately Wales lost 31-0, so not quite as close. But what are the memories from that tour then, Ceri? And how proud was you to pull on that famous red jersey?
Oh, I was slightly later on in my career at the time. So for times I thought it had passed me by, but then obviously got the opportunity to go. It was a World Cup year, so they left a few boys at home, so Gethin in that addition. It was a great opportunity. And like I said, to pull on the jersey was just absolutely fantastic. For me and my family, given my dad was only ever, he only got to a sort of Wales B cap, so I think he always thought that he would certainly like the chance to have pulled it on, but it sort of passed him by as well. So I think it was it was huge for all of us. Always remember all the family, and my young son went down to Aston Rugby Club to watch the game. So they were. It was a proud day for them as well. I'm probably the only sort of internationals come through that small club. So it's just a very proud moment, and proud, great that I was able to achieve it. When I thought, like I said, I thought it could have passed me by. So it was brilliant. Like I said, it was a big gut in that first game that we couldn't sort of made that decision to sort of kick it away, and potentially we looked after the ball for a period of time. We could have knocked it off and won. Then we caught a bit cold in that first one. I don't think they knew quite what to expect from our squad, and we rocked up and put up a performance. I think they pulled themselves together the second week, and up in Brisbane, it was a tough ask in the second one, but it was an invaluable experience for me, and I loved every minute of it.
And the Australian hoodoo continues because Wales has still never won a test in Australia since the 60s. So the wait goes on. But yeah, that first test, I remember watching it. It was an absolute killer because we really should have won it. And you think as soon as Gav Cooper, I mean, I like Gav Cooper, he was a good player. But when he kicked the ball, me and my dad were like, no, because you just knew what was going to happen. It was just one of those moments. It was gutting, wasn't it? Really gutting.
No, but yeah, like I said, it was at the same time, it was just, yeah, it was wonderful. Like I said, yeah, we're very proud of achieving that.
Yeah, absolutely. So it should be. So Gav Jenkins was the Wales coach, wasn't he, on our tour?
Yes. Yep.
It's well known that he was a bit of a character. What did you find he was like, Kerry, working under Gav Jenkins?
Yeah, like I said, I'm forever thankful for him because he's the coach who gave me, my opportunity and gave me, awarded me with a cap. So,
yeah,
Rob McBride was there with the coaching team with Nigel Davis, so it was very much that Scarlets group. Had a lot of success in what they did. Yeah, Gareth was sort of more hands off. The coaching was made down by the sort of other coaches, really. But he was more of a sort of manager type coach, I would say, rather than sort of implementing a lot on field. So you had, like I said, you had Rob McBride and you had Nigel running the team more than anything else. And like I said, I got nothing but thanks to him, and like I said, for the opportunity more than anything else.
Yeah, excellent, fair enough. Gav, you're going to like this next question. As an Ebervale fan, you're going to like this. So, Kerry, when you was coaching at Worcester, you combined that job with being forwards coach at Ebervale. And you was part of the coaching setup when Ebervale won the Welsh Premiership back in 2016. So that's got to be up there in your career highlights, isn't it?
Yeah, it was great. So I finished my career at Worcester when I snapped my Achilles. So I was sort of, what was I then? I was, going on for 37 then. So I had a pretty good career. And I think Richard Hill sort of asked me to carry on playing that next season for sort of 6 months and then go into the sort of scrum coach role. That was my sort of pathway into him. And then Dean actually came in. Dean Ryan came in, which Dean Ryan again. And he came in and said to me, so I promised the board young and English, and you're old and Welsh, and you're going to snap Achilles. So so he sort of in conversation that one was. So so he sort of he said they were interviewing for a scrum coach job and did I want to interview for it? And we had a bit of a debate about the fact that I'd already sort of been promised that job. But ultimately I did that job, and I did that alongside sort of an academy forwards coach role, which was a really good place to be at the time with Worcester. And then Jason Strange actually asked me to come down and help him out. And I think it was after Dwayne Goodfield went back to Cardiff. So it was sort of, I think it was about in October time. Went there with Jace, and then we had a good year then. We just, we weren't quite ready at that time, that first year. And then Jace then got the opportunity at Cardiff. So then Nigel came in, and it just sort of all came together. And I think, that group at Ebervale had been building for a long time, and Jace had done sterling work with that group to build them up to that level. They're an experienced group with Damien Hurd and Rob Sevenoaks and all the crew, and Ronnie Kynes, so the catching Kynes. So it was just my own experience with the group was just sort of like adding one or two things to it, but just sort of like keeping them going in the right direction, really. So I don't want to take too much credit for my role in it. I just probably helped sort of mold it a bit, as with Nigel, and and just put a few finishing touches, and we managed to go to Ponte and turn them over and then win the Prem, which was a very, very proud moment, and great for Ebervale.
That was
Happy
a great
days,
pack. that was a great pack as well. Like Damien Head and Ronnie Kynes and those guys. Damien is coaching, he's still knocking about at Brimau and stuff, but that was a hell of a team, that was.
Yeah, like I said, you had Sweetie there around the line out. You had like you had a proper sort of like good mix within the pack, and like Cameron Regan and those guys, and then a lot of them are still playing, but they were just really good blend, and a real bunch of boys, who just wanted to work hard for the shirt. Very, very proud to play for Ebervale, but also a great sort of team camaraderie amongst them. Oaksy was a real character and sort of really helped with that. And then, like I said, we had some really good players out wide. You had a young Harrison Keddy coming through, and a Jared Rosser came in from Dragons and really bought into the Ebervale way. And in the end, it sort of just sort of came together and just sort of clicked. I suppose that was the sort of real reason, and the boys worked really hard for the shirt and ultimately got what they deserved.
It was a good mixture, wasn't it, of kind of local boys and kind of lads who'd come in from Newport and various other areas and stuff. And I think that local core, then with kind of a lot of expertise around it, just built a great side, probably one of the best sides we've had there for a decade, really.
Yeah, no, it was. Like I said, I think the Dragons boys knew that to earn their place in the team. So I thought Harrison was brilliant as a young player coming in. He was still playing sort of Wales 20s at the time, and I was, he'd come in and he'd been training with the academy all day and had done some tough training sessions, or he'd been with the 20s, and he'd come to every Ebervale game, and same with Jared. But Keds in particular would be there. He'd do all the fitness. He wouldn't drop out of anything. He was completely invested in the place, and then the players can see that with any young player, and if they completely commit and invest into it, I remember sort of Ross and Oaksy saying, well, Oaksy would be like, I've been up since 4 o'clock in the morning moving meat around, and Ross has been killing cattle I don't know what time in the morning. So what's the difference between doing that, doing a few training sessions down the Dragons? As far as they were back in and do the same. I think Damien had been digging holes doing his water pipes all day, and that's pretty tough in itself. Like, so it's and to be fair, like I said, when everyone buys in like that, you're in a good place.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about the Dragons then. So you arrived at the Dragons as forwards coach, being brought in by Ceri Jones. And then later on down the line, you became interim head coach when Bernard Jackman got sacked after poor results. How challenging was it, Ceri, stepping up from forwards coach to all of a sudden being Dragons head coach? Because that was a very difficult time, wasn't it, when Bernard got sacked? The club were really, really struggling. You found yourself in the hot seat. How did you deal with the transition from being a forwards coach to suddenly being head coach?
But yeah, it's sort of my whole first stint at Dragons. There was a lot of upheaval, like virtually every season. Obviously, the first season with Kingsley comes in, then Bernard does 18 months, and then Bernard decides to sort of take himself out of it really more than anything else. I think that's I would just want to put on a record with Bernard, like he decided to go. I think more than he was sort of pushed, because I just think a lot of the stuff that he was promised, from the union when they first came in, didn't really come to what they promised in the first place. And perhaps he made a few errors on the way, but I think he was promised the world when he first came in. And like I say, it didn't really happen for him. So I always remember I was up in Northampton away, and I think we got beaten quite heavily, and we were struggling with the team at the moment. We had a lot of injuries and whatnot. Going to Northampton's never easy. I think we went to get I remember, I was with him by myself, and he just said, "Oh, look, I'm gonna sort of resign or have my notice in, or move or whatever." So he said, I have to leave it to them to know what they're going to do. So it was like he just gave me a bit of a heads up, and then sort of I think the board at the time were hoping to put somebody in place like straight away, and they were talking about world-class coach, and I think it went sort of a week or so, and I think we had Claremont away the next week. It was, and it got to sort of Wednesday, and sort of nothing had happened really. So it was just sort of we had to sort of, myself and I think Barry went down and spoke to the board and just sort of said, well, we're gonna have to do something. We're gonna have to make some sort of decision. We're gonna have to crack on, and then they just that's what can you step up and can you run it? But there's a lot going on that particular time. I think there's a big dispute between the players. They were bringing in banding for wages for
I remember
Lair.
that. Yeah.
And then so obviously there was a lot of upheaval around that. So that was going on. So I think Mike then just resigned. The
CEO, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, so Mike resigned as well, virtually at the same time.
Yeah.
So so Mike went and Bernard had gone. So I went from just being coach to being forwards coach, head coach, but also having to go to like PRB meetings. So I found myself representing. I know. But, I was in the morning. I was down in PRB, down representing the Dragons, with the board and the members of the Welsh Rugby Union. Then had to shoot back and run a unit session, and then sort of had to try and put the team together. So it was challenging to say the least.
I bet, yeah.
I thought the players really pulled together. I don't know if you remember the season very well. I think we after that, I think we had a pretty good performance against Claremont over there. Boys really dug in, and I think
Yeah, I remember that.
We scraped the win against the Ospreys just after Christmas, and the horrendous rain was a really proud moment. And then we won a couple more as we went, and then we eventually beat Scarlets on Judgment Day, which was my sort of last game in charge, which was great. Like, so even though it was extremely challenging, I thought again, credit to the players. They pulled together. The core group worked really, really hard for each other, and we ended up picking up some decent results. So, like I said, it's down to them and their resilience as a group, and people like Elliot, and Kelly, and those boys. Just the core sort of Gwent boys, I would say, like young Wayno coming through at the time. They really did everything they could to support me during a really difficult time, and like I said, it was I'm really thankful to them as well, like for their support along with the other coaches, and it was ultimately it didn't have a bad period at all for that short period of time.
No, and I was going to ask you about Judgment Day, actually, because I was there and it's one of the best Dragons games I've been to. So when you was Dragons head coach, you did make a little bit of history because Dragons finally won a Judgment Day game under your coaching. That was the first time we'd ever won the Judgment Day. We beat the Scarlets 34-32. Jason Tovey with that ice cold conversion right at the end. It's a fantastic match. But what I loved about it as well was the build-up during the game. So I don't know if you remember this. Johan Cunningham, who was Scarlet's assistant coach at the time, he sort of came out and said that how important it was to get like a bonus point win over the Dragons because they were really chasing that playoff, and they were just saying, we need to get this bonus point win. And you didn't take too kindly to that, Ceri, did you? Because you called them pretty arrogant. You said they're pretty arrogant about where they are. Should they be beating us? Yeah, with the budget and squad they've got, but let's wait and see. To be fair, Ceri, you're absolutely right, because there was an expectation the Scarlets were just going to come into town, hammer us, get their bonus point win, and that'd be it. But it didn't quite work out like that. And there's a lot of confidence around Scarlets, even in the fans, in the pubs before the game, they were quite chipper. But then when we beat them, they really wasn't expecting it. And it was a great day, wasn't it? How did you feel about Judgment Day?
It was huge at the time. The boys were obviously well up for it, and I may have had a bit of a chip on my shoulder, but they certainly did as well, because there was that core group. Again, I speak about them a lot, but that core group, when I first started in the Kingsley, none of them got capped at the time, but then you ended up with Leon, Elliot getting capped. Then since then, Squeechy's been capped. Corey got capped. You had through. Then you brought Ross in. Then you had Wayno coming through. So you've suddenly gone from having no internationals within that pack to a young group of men who grabbed it by the scruff of their neck and worked their socks off and almost stepped up to be the future pack now, haven't they? Like, and got a lot of caps since that point. Like, so I think they were all really hungry at the time, and I think they're pretty disappointed with the way they came out. And I think Gareth Davis had sort of riled us up beforehand, sort of saying something in the press about how poor we were the previous time as well.
Said we were. Yeah, the previous season, he said we were pretty average, and we tried to drag them down to their level, wasn't it? It was something along those lines. I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, they'd give a fair bit of ammunition, to be fair. So, like I said, it made the team talk really easy. Like,
so you used that as motivation to do the stuff the Scarlets had said. You'd used that as motivation. Yeah, good.
Yeah, we stuck up a few quotes in the week leading up to us. Definitely gave us a bit of edge on that day, and I remember, Squeechy scored a couple of tries, and he was pretty ferocious in his carrying day, wasn't he? And
he was, yeah.
There were some brilliant moments within that, like I said, and just it came together for us. And like I said, I was delighted for the group after, because it was a big weight off their shoulders, considering the amount of turmoil that we'd had throughout the season, and to finish it with the day win was just perfect in a way. So it's a fond memory, that one.
Yeah, it's one of my favourite days watching the Dragons, because I remember Reece Patchell missed a drop goal right at the end. So they could have snuck it even still, the Scarlets. But we deserved it that day. We really did deserve it, because like I said, a lot of people just thought they were going to roll us over quite comfortably. And I think they were shocked by how good we were that day. I thought we were really good. So
we were.
It was good, wasn't it? Happy days. When you left the Dragons, then you spent 3 years up in North Wales coaching RGC. How do you reflect on your time up north, Ceri? Are you happy with what you achieved up there?
It was a funny time, really. Obviously, just coming out of COVID, so the first season was difficult because it was a bit start, and we had like COVID protocols in place and everything else. great place, great people. A group of boys up there who really want to get better. And in terms of levels of commitment from players, I thought it was huge. We had farmers from as far down Wales as an hour and a half away, traveling back and forth, an hour and a half for training, and then doing every other week doing that 4.5 hour trip down south to play. So in terms of the commitment level from the players, I thought it was incredible. And how much they wanted to play, how much they wanted to improve as rugby players. For me personally, I think it was a real sort of opportunity to step up to head coach and sort of learn my craft really more than anything else. So running a whole program, developing like a senior academy group. Ultimately, the women's game has gone huge in RGC now, and they've got a lot of internationals through there in the women's game. So developing that side of it, having to employ people, going into different people coming in, so going to do interviews, going through panels and sort of sponsorship deals and kit things, and then budgets and what have you. So it was a slightly different challenge for me, really, than I'd done before, in terms of just doing the forwards coach and stepping up into the interim sort of head coach's role. But I didn't have to do as much of that side of it. So I think it was a real learning experience for me personally. And I think, like I said, I thought the players were hugely committed and a good bunch of people up there, in general.
Well, what were the facilities like, Ceri? Because going back a long time, I used to teach in Colwyn Bay, and we used to use that stadium for our sports days and stuff. But I'm assuming the facilities had improved a lot since 25 years ago.
Yeah, well, RAS is basically the home of RGC, and basically the Welsh Rugby Union, Conway Council, and sort of a bit of lottery funding then was all added together. And inside the stadium, then they built a barn. They built a state-of-the-art gym on the end of the barn, a little bit like the Vale, maybe obviously on a slightly smaller scale, but the offices are there on spot. And then you've got the main pitch has been converted to a 4G now, but there's another 4G down the bottom, so there's 2 4G facilities there, and there's a leisure centre right on your doorstep as well, with a swimming pool and another sort of state-of-the-art gym, and then you're a 5-minute walk down to the sea then, so you can, we use it quite often, go down there and do some sea recovery, some cold water therapy work on. So in terms of the facility, it was absolutely fantastic, really, really good and all in one spot. It's the biggest challenge to RGC, and it always will be, is just the fact that the rest of the league is so far away, and it's the travel side of it, and then recruitment was always very difficult. You've got your local lads who will always be your best local lads, and they possibly coming through their leagues underneath. The leagues aren't strong enough up there. The level of rugby isn't strong enough, whereas we've got Championship and Premiership, which is going to be this year, and they're competitive. But whereas the very top side of North Wales would come down and they'd struggle against and then Conway got well beaten, I think it was by Newbury, for example. So it's and they're by the best team up there, so the actual level. So you kind of got the best players in North Wales already playing for RGC, and then trying to bring players in, just haven't got the budget to bring them in. So you're offering the player, I don't know, the same sort of money as Vale and the Newport would, which is a bit of a retainer and maybe a bit of a top up. But most of the players you need up there are experienced players. You've got plenty of youngsters coming through, but an experienced player generally have family. You've got to get accommodation for them. You've got to get wages for them. Probably got to try and get a job for them, and you just can't do it. So you end up then not being able to bring in the caliber of player that the sort of South Walian clubs can, and that was the biggest challenge really going forward.
Yeah, because I was going to ask you about that. I had a friend who played for Nan Conway, kind of, and heads and shoulders above everyone else in North Wales. But like you say, when they come down and play South Walian sides, it wasn't the same standard, was it? But there were good players up there.
Yeah, there are really, really good players. I mean, Avon Bagshaw, you look at Dion Jones, you look at some of the forwards in Pella Jones. There's some really good players up there, but it's just not enough really good players. And like I said, it's the recruitment side is always difficult, because you can't offer enough money to get just a rugby player up there, and then unless you're moving up to North Wales for work, it's just way too far for anyone to commute. So it's an ongoing challenge for everyone up there. But they've got a lot of good people up there doing a lot of good work, and their junior section, they're getting better and better every year. The RGC under 18s have been stronger and stronger every year, so they're investing heavily in that side of it, and they're trying to sort of outreach to the different areas of their region. So they're really trying to work to get across to Wrexham and down to Bangor and Welshpool. So they're trying to outsource it, so they haven't got time. So there's lots and lots of good work going on in RGC, and I think going forward, I think it's going to be adding more and more to Welsh rugby. So I was really fond of my time up there, and like I said, there's lots of good people doing lots of work up there, and it can be different, the challenges. So like I say, credit to those guys.
So I was going to ask about that. So was it Welsh qualified players that you had to get? Because it's easier from Colwyn Bay almost to travel to kind of Manchester than there is to South Wales, isn't it? I wondered if you could, kind of tap into that, the fact that Manchester and Liverpool relatively close to you there.
Yeah, it's the same as any other club within Wales. I think it's only 2 sort of overseas players you're allowed within the squad. So obviously non-Welsh wouldn't count really. But funnily enough, there's quite a few Welsh qualified players going over to Caldy. So that was probably the biggest advantage, was Caldy doing quite so well and going up and doing well in that sort of in the English sort of championship. And then a few of the Welsh boys went over there and wanted to experience that, because now they've got the opportunity to play against the likes of Bath and Bristol and all that within that Prem Cup competition. So it's quite an attraction for some of those best North players to go across and have the opportunity to do that, which has been quite smart by the English clubs, I think, because everyone likes that sort of rivalry. I think if, say, the regions got to play against a Newport, if you had Newport playing against the Dragons, or the Dragons playing against Pontypool, I can guarantee there'd be a pretty big crowd to go and watch that. So it's that local rivalry is obviously quite a big thing as well. So I thought they were quite smart in what they did there.
Yeah, absolutely. So, to the delight of many supporters, you're back at the Dragons as academy coach, and you are Newport RFC's new forwards coach, replacing Sam Hobbs, who's going to be the new Dragons forwards coach. How excited for you with the new season, Gavin? You must be buzzing for it. The challenges ahead for the academy and Newport.
Yeah, no, brilliant. Like I said, I've been at it now a couple of months, and we're really fortunate at the Dragons to have a really good, hard-working court players who've come in and really bought into everything we tried to do. We played our first game last Friday with a win against Cardiff, which was great, and great for the boys because they had a difficult year last year. So they really stepped it up, and along with the other coaches, I think James Chapron's come back in and really helped us sort of steer us in the right direction, alongside Lewis Roberts, and then you've got Adam Thomas. You got a really good group around it. You got Harrison Keddy and James Benjamin assisting us as well.
Okay,
so it's been great. So for those boys to have that access to like Jumbo and Keddy coming in and helping as well, and then those boys being senior pros within the environment. Adam's done a sterling job with it as well. Like I said, we've got a great team around us with Matt Polder and the S&C and. So like I said, we put a lot into it this year, with the new academy license coming into it. So there is a resource going into that group, in terms of probably more than they've had before. So that's probably been the biggest difference, is that we've got a group of people who are really committed to just focus on that sort of junior academy and under 18s group. Whereas I think before, a lot of the coaches being pulled around from pillar to post. So that's been great, and I think that's made a big difference to the group. So that's been fantastic. And as far as Newport concerned, this year it's back to my roots a bit. It's been great. So going back with the Black and Ambers, it's their 150th anniversary. Obviously, with the dinner to come, a lot of old familiar friends of mine coming over for that. So I think pretty sure Snowy and Leitch and those guys are coming over. So to be involved with the club, on the 150th year is sort of worked out perfectly for me, really. A really good group at Newport, an experienced group, and I'm just trying to, again, sort of build on a lot of the good work that Sam has already done and the foundations that Tim and Ty have laid. And like I said, myself and Gareth Wyatt coming in, we're just trying to add to that, and hopefully we can push them on and seal the deal this year, and and try and get above Llandudno. Obviously, they just picked them last year, so that's ultimately the aim. It's a big challenge. Because they're a team that are right up there anyway. So we need to be really try and hopefully add some value to the group.
Absolutely. And it wasn't just any old win over Cardiff, by the way, the under-18s. It was a 54-15 win. It was absolute thrashing. Love to see it. 8 tries scored. So, well done to the group there. Fantastic. So let's talk about Newport, and in particular Super Rugby Cymru, because we spoke about this with Hugh Gustafsson, who's the Swansea head coach. And we was asking him, how does he feel about the new competition? So this was brought in. There was some controversy around it, wasn't there? A lot of clubs were very against it. And it's all about trying to close that gap, isn't it, Ceri, from semi-pro to pro, which, the Premiership hasn't always done, I think it's fair to say. So the WRU brought this new competition in. How do you feel about it? And do you feel we can finally narrow that gap from semi-pro to pro?
I certainly hope so. I think that's the challenge. I think, I suppose the major thing is just sort of with the new competition, there's a bit of sort of criteria you need to try and hit within the new competition. It's a bit like the academy license I was speaking to you about before. You have to have an S&C provision within the group. You have to be showing that the boys are doing an extra session, an extra weight session within that. You have to to do with the A license, you have to make sure you've got all the provision around the players, a certain amount of physios, etc. So I think that's the biggest thing, is just sort of making it more professional, making all the coaching and all the extras we're adding into the group more and more professional. And I think then with the structure of that, you'll naturally get more younger players involved within that. And it's just about giving those really good young academy players opportunity, and they still got to earn it, don't get me wrong. Like I was speaking about Harrison earlier coming in, they have to earn it. But ultimately, we want to be the best sort of young Dragons players playing. But like I said, from a Newport perspective, you look at the way Ryan Woodman came in and just absolutely flourished at Newport.
Absolutely.
Look at the way I massively flourished at Newport. Look at Will Reid came in, had like I said, a big boost from playing for Newport, and then they've all kicked on off the back of that. So I think ultimately that's the sort of model we're looking at, and a lot of work that Vale are doing with the players, and certainly Pontypool as well. With the players they're doing. So credit to Slug and to Chippy as well, because they're doing great work up there with the young Dragons boys. So I think it's just having that sort of tie-in from us to all three teams, giving the young Dragons players opportunity in a really good team. And I think that's only going to make each club stronger, make the competition stronger, and then hopefully then it just feeds straight into the regions then.
Yeah, you're hoping. So working with the academy, Ceri, who are the boys that we should be looking out for? Who are the kids that you're working with exciting young futures? Who's really impressed you so far?
Well, we're very, very fortunate. I think it's one of the only years we've had quite a big group. In terms of big group, what I mean by that is just genuinely big men coming through. So
Good to hear.
Yeah, we got some really big boys coming in from sort of Abdeleri. So we got Ashton Swain is a big lad coming in from there. So he's we got I think 4 guys are all over 6'4" or 5. So a big man is Elliot Bevan from Cwmbran. But yeah, so the likes of Tiger Chatham is a Cwmbran player. He's been recently with Wales 18s. There's Will Ford, who's Harry Ford's younger brother.
Oh yeah,
he's another young 10 as well. He's recently been away with the 18s. Carter Pritchard's Wales 18s as well. Carrick Smith, he's a good young back rower. Be very good. My own son's actually in the academy as well, so that'll be interesting coaching him. So Regan. So
what position is your son, Ceri?
He's a hooker actually, but he's bigger than me. So yeah, he's a
gosh, bigger than you. Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
We'll have to keep it out for him.
Yeah, he's 6 foot and he's about 110 kilos as a hooker. So he's a fair lump to be. Yeah,
he's lad.
Just a bit.
Yeah, so that's a bit of a challenge. Well, obviously coming in and coaching your own son, but fortunately he's already been in the Dragons setup for 3 years before I've had anything to do with it. So it sort of helps. So just coming in and trying to help him out really. But I think so. We got another bloke called Zach Alexander, who's up at Monmouth, and he's a good kid. So we're very fortunate. Like I said, the actual back size, 2 young tight heads, about 6'3" and about 115 kilos, already, and they're 16 years old.
60.
Yeah,
It's scary,
So
isn't it? It's really scary to hear about these big kids like
Oh
that.
my God, that's massive.
Mainly got 6'3", 115 kilos prop and 110 kilo 6 foot sort of hooker, and then you've got four or five guys who are all over 6'5", 6'6", and they're about over 110 kilos as well. So you suddenly got a massive group of players coming through now. Yes, they've got a huge amount to work on. Is all that weight good weight? No, it's not. Like they got a bit of work to do around.
Yeah.
Huge work to do.
With lads like that, do you have to kind of focus on the technique? I coach under 11s, and we've got some big boys, and they're just used to running through everyone, and they'll come up against people who they're not going to run over it, because it's about teaching those lads to use their weight technically almost, and to use it differently.
Yeah, I suppose we've been coaching this year a lot about sort of decision making on pressure, really, than anything else. So we look at our game model and we look at who's under pressure, who's got momentum. We make our decisions on what we do based off that, which is something that's quite new to the group. So we want them to be able to play from deep, and I think if you saw the highlights against Cardiff, we scored some wonderful tries from almost out. But we also, if the defence was up then and there wasn't space to run, we quite happy to kick that ball. So it's based on, have we got momentum? Who's under pressure? Can we relieve pressure through running or kicking or playing to space, really? So it's just giving the players opportunity to be able to find that, I suppose, to be able to deliver it and support them, and just not being too prescriptive with them, not saying, a lot of coaches at the moment saying, well, we have to exit in this point, or we're on this part of the field, we have to do a box kick, we have to get a caterpillar. Well, yes, you can build that, but if they drop 4 people in the backfield, what's the point kicking that? You just well run it. So it's just almost trying to teach that decision making. And then with the big lads, really, it's learning how to use their bodies, because even though they're big chaps, a lot of their core wouldn't be strong enough to hold their body in shape, when they're in scrum or when they're jumping in the line out. So it's really working on their core skills, so the throw, lift, jump, and how you jump in, the technique of jumping, actually getting off the ground, the technique on the lift, and every other part of that, to try and get that part right first, and then adding systems in second. So that's the way we've sort of tried to approach it this year. And it's a different challenge, because obviously coaching the senior boys, they're almost, well, most of them are past that, really. So whereas these boys, you almost got to teach them that and then layer it up.
Well, sounds very exciting, doesn't it? Can't wait to see these big lads coming through, because Welsh rugby needs big lads, don't we? We was talking about it with Hugh Gustavus and Gavin. Really, the Wales aren't producing enough big players. But from what you're saying, Ceri, we've got some big boys coming through now, and it's quite encouraging, because it is a physical game, isn't it? Now, it really is important, the physicality side of it.
Yeah, massively. Like I said, we don't generally produce that many big men. Even I think speaking to Jack Condy the other day, and he was saying, he looks at the group and he was like, "Oh, they're big. I think it's the biggest 18s group we've had. Backs and forwards. I'm talking. There's some big backs out there again, like Dave Petrescu, Morgan Carter. There's some big boys out there, and there's there's some incredibly skillful smaller guys, like Will Ford is the biggest guy, and Noah Morgan isn't the biggest guy, but they're really good players as well. And I'm not just saying it's just about big, but
no,
in certain you do have to be big. It's, you can have the most skillful second row in the world, but if he's 5'6", he's going to struggle at the top end. It's as simple as that. You do have to be a certain size and frame for certain positions.
It's the way the game is going, isn't it? The way the game is going, that packs are getting bigger and heavier, but kind of fitter with it as well.
They are. So it's it's an exciting group, and like I said, they're working incredibly hard. And we've got RGC now on Sunday up at Estramonach, and then we've got Scarlets away the following Thursday. So that'll be the summer block down then, and then building back up then into the rag block, which is the competitive fixtures just after Christmas. So the boys will have finished the summer block just after that. They'll then go away to their colleges. So we're hoping to really try and work hard with College Gwent and Newport High, and quite a few boys at Monmouth boys as well. So we're trying to work, 3 of our strategic partners alongside a lot of the comprehensive schools as well are doing sterling jobs. So we're just trying to get ourselves out there across the region and support these boys as much as we can and develop them, and then hopefully we'll have a good group of them come through and kick on and into the academy, and then ultimately onto the Dragons and Wales, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully. All sounds very promising. Last question for me. It's a big season now for the Dragons coming up. There's been changes on and off the field of recruitment, new management. How do you feel about it, Ceri? Do you believe that this is going to be Dragons' best season in a long time? You know, because there is a lot of hope and optimism, as there is every season, of course. We always say on this podcast, don't we, Gav? It's the hope that kills you. But surely now they've got to kick on now, Ceri, and we've got to see the Dragons improve. Are you hopeful that this will finally be the case?
Look, I think we're as well placed as any other region, if not better than some of the other regions. I think.
In what sense, Ceri? In what sense do you feel we're better placed than the other regions?
Well, I think we're on a level playing field. Like, you my comment from years ago about the budget side of it now, and the Scarlets being on significantly more budget than we are. I think it's the even playing field now. Not that I know the ins that I want to, but from what I gather, we are pretty even playing field. I think we've got our fair share of good international quality players, and tried them really well to retain those players. I think we've got some really good youngsters coming through, which I've already spoken about, like some Woody and Ackers and co, like coming through. So I think we're in a good place like there. I think it's a very good coaching team. With Obi and Hobbsy, having earned their stripes and getting the opportunity to step up, I think it's great for them. They're really good coaches. And Fido coming in and bringing something different. So I think, what I mean by I think we're well placed, I just think it's a nicely balanced coaching group. I think it's a nice looking squad, and it's myself and everyone around it is going to try and do everything to make it a really successful year. So it's exciting, and like I said, let's wait and see, because you never know with rugby and and how things can fluctuate. But certainly, I think we're really well placed to have a good year.
Yeah, we could really do a one. I mean, we are do a good year as Dragon supporters. I think we could all agree, aren't we, Gav? We're just waiting for that 1 year, where we exceed all expectations and be competitive. So fingers crossed.
We're not greedy. We don't expect to win the URC, but a couple more wins. That's all we're after.
Yeah.
Well, look, boys, I'm the same. Ultimately, I'm a Dragon supporter. Like I've lived my whole life here, so I'm as much a Dragon supporter as you are. So, I'm fully invested, and I want that, nothing more, and everyone else within the Dragons want that, nothing more than the supporters do. That to have that year, have that success. And I can assure you, everyone's doing everything they can, within the squad and the outer reaches to try and ultimately deliver that to the supporters. We're very thankful for your support and and everything you do for us as well.
Oh, great stuff. Gav, any further thoughts or questions for you before we wrap
I had
up?
one question. Is it, Ceri, is it your link then that got the Newport pre-season friendly down at dusk? Was it for you that worked that?
I won't say that because it was actually done before me. Will say that I did play in the 125th, so I'm not that old. I think my dad might have played in the 100th one, or he'd been around the squad then. I captain Newport against us for the 125th, and obviously this is the 150th now. So it is a tradition having both clubs both celebrating their anniversaries on the same year, and I think it's a tradition. I think Usk's first game was against Newport, so I think that's where it's come from more than anything else. It's just a historical fixture. The fact that the Newport agreed to play against us is absolutely fantastic. It was a bit of a lesson for us today, but it was really. It was a brilliant day. Everyone got huge amounts from it, and like I said, as being an Us boy, I'm hugely thankful for Newport for honouring the fixture and carrying on the tradition, which is what the game's core is about, really. So it's it's good. That's going in a good place, and Sam Mills has come back to coach them this year, so I'm sure they're going to have a good year themselves this year. So I do try to get
that. Ceri, what league are Usk?
I think they're in 2 East. Is it something like that? Okay. Don't quote me on that, Mike, but I think it's 2 East. I think they got promoted not last year, year before, and they sort of held on to their place sort of last year. I think they're really working hard now to sort of push on in that league, and try and get towards the top. But it's a good league for them. They're a lovely club. Very, very welcoming, and loads of people working really hard there. And it's a lovely club, and I enjoy going down there. When I get spare time when my wife allows me. So.
Okay, I think we'll leave it there then. Ceri, thank you so much for joining us today. We really do appreciate it. Best of luck for the season with Newport RFC and with the work with the Dragons Academy. Thanks again for giving up your time to speak to us. It really is appreciated.
No, absolute pleasure, boys. And like I said, again, thank you very much for having me. And like I said, we thank you for you and all the listeners for your support. And we're doing everything we can to try and make it a successful season for everyone to enjoy. And like, if any of the supporters should wish to come and watch the 18s, we'd be grateful for their support as well, because they're playing some good stuff. So it's some good rugby to watch.
Brilliant. Okay. Thank you, Gavin, as always. And thank you, the listener, for downloading this episode. We hope you enjoyed it. We'll be back next week with another special guest. But until then, take care and goodbye.
That was the Dragons Lair. Join us for more of the same next week, and in the meantime, please rate, review and share us on socials if you can. Until then, enjoy your rugby.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.